Hi, Casey. How you doing? I've got your work up here. Thank you so much for submitting. Let's go ahead and take a look. Um, okay, so there's a little bit of a misrepresentation of the requirements here. Now, remember the front, there's no illustration or image used on the front. And right now, you're using the scale to kind of represent equality associated with Martin Luther King. And that's a good concept. However, you're communicating using illustration and not typography. At this point, I want to draw your attention over to the course announcements, specifically this final project explained with examples deconstructed. Take a look at this announcement. If you've looked at it, look at it again. Watch the whole video and really study what I'm saying about the examples, because these are phenomenal examples, and I describe them and I deconstruct them in a way that makes it very, very clear what we're going for here. So mainly, the main thing I want to say is this, is that we need to make all communication typographic and not illustrative. Right now, this is illustrative because this is the focal point on the page, is this big scale, right? I understand that it's replacing the T in Luther, but it's really not working out. It's overpowering the type itself. It's kind of not even really resembling the T. The scales, trays are kind of interfering. It's not working out in a way that points to the illustration taking focal point away from the typography. As we know, we're trying to create message via typography and not illustration. Okay, so for that, watch your spelling here too, social, that's a spelling error. The main thing I would say is you want to work this equality in. Can you work this equality right into the typography? I know you can do this, and let me give you an example of how. And let's go to this announcement, Project Explained, and I want to show you the first example, which is probably one of the finest examples I've seen while teaching this class. And I teach this class a lot, this Toni Morrison piece. So at first glance, this is an illustration, right? But it's worked into the typography. This visual substitution of the fist for the O in Toni works out magically. It's beautiful. Then, so this is creating meaning typographically and not illustratively. Now, if we take a look at this piece, and then we go back to this piece and we say, let's say we put Toni Morrison here, and then we just put a big fist over here. Now, we're not communicating typographically, we're communicating illustratively, because the illustration is taking over the typography. Typically, when you have an illustration or an image, the viewer is going to head to that first. So typically when you include an illustration or an image that's not worked into the typography, it's going to take precedence in hierarchy. We don't want to do that in this assignment. In this assignment, we want to create all our messages via typography. So moving forward, my recommendation, two recommendations. Number one, whenever you submit work for approval, always describe your intent. Always, always, always describe your intent, because your viewer might miss something, a critical piece of information. So when you describe it, the viewer will understand your concept. In this case, the viewer, meaning your peers and your instructor, will understand your concept and will be able to comment more accurately on the depiction of your concept. Does that make sense? It's a very, very, very important concept in design. So sketching out our ideas often is not enough. It's best to always describe your idea. So in this regard, I would have liked to have seen a good description of what your intent is here. Why brown? Why yellow? Why gray? Why the typefaces? Why are you using serif on the subhead and sans serif on the headline? Just see what I'm saying? These are all things that should tie right into the concept. Okay, so moving along from here, the first thing I would recommend is to stay away from center alignment. We don't want to center align. We want to use negative space as a design element and not leftover space. Okay, so try to avoid center alignment. If you want to stick with this scale, try to work it into the typography, like maybe this JR right here at the top, because the scale could come up here. This would entail you having to illustrate the scale, by the way, and kind of work it in. And that's just a little example. Please feel free to explore any concept that you think has value, but remember my comments on illustration versus typography, okay? Also, and keep in mind as we move through the class, you really, really want to describe your intent with all of your critique posts, definitely, and all of your posts, really, not just this class, in all of your classes. Okay, Casey, thank you very much. If you have any question at all, please let me know, and I'll be glad to make any necessary clarifications. Thank you very much.